A piece of research which was completed by the Equality Trust in 2021 revealed concerning and widespread abuses of the rights of young people at work. Some of the issues which were highlighted were that it was common for young people to be bullied, harassed or abused in the workplace, young people not being given correct pay slips which they are legally entitled to, or being given confusing pay slips, young people being underpaid, young people being refused holidays and being unfairly sacked, young workers being likely to be discriminated against on the grounds of ethnicity, gender, sexuality, disabilities, or other protected characteristics, young people being pressured into working in an unsafe way. For example, young couriers are often given tight deadlines for deliveries, which puts pressure on them to break the speed limit. Young people are less likely to be able to take their employers to court over mistreatment at work.
It's important to know that employment rights are civil rights. This means that it's up to you, not state agencies like the police, to enforce them. The police do not enforce your rights at work, you do.
It might be helpful to inform you of some of the key terms you'll be hearing throughout this video. An employee is someone who is guaranteed regular hours of work and isn't allowed to refuse work or refuse to come to work, apart from when their health and safety is at immediate risk. Their employer pays their tax and national insurance through making deductions from their pay and provides facilities and resources for work. A worker, by contrast, is someone who isn't guaranteed any hours but doesn't have to accept work and shifts, although there can be consequences if they don't. Their contracts are often described as casual and their hours described as and when required. Their employers do, however, pay their tax and national insurance through deductions as with employees. A self-employed person pays their own tax and national insurance. They provide their own tools and equipment, and instead of being paid a wage, they issue invoices to people who they do work for to get paid. Trade unions are organisations responsible for supporting employees and workers who are being exploited at work. Unions are formed when groups of workers organise together to help win a better deal at work. Unions allow workers to join together to negotiate the pay and conditions they deserve and make sure working people are treated with respect and get a voice at work. A deduction is when an employer reduces how much you are paid and uses that money to pay for something else. In regards to self-employed, it is worthwhile knowing that employers can sometimes make their employees or workers self-employed to get out of having to pay their tax and national insurance. For example, in a real-life case recently, Uber drivers were made self-employed. However, they didn't actually have the right to refuse work from the app, contrary to Uber's claims, meaning that they were actually employees because they couldn't refuse work. The workers took Uber to a civil court and won.
The minimum wage that can be paid to you is dependent on your age. If you're an apprentice, you can be paid £4.30 per hour. If you're 16 to 17, you can be paid £4.62 per hour. If you're 18 to 20, you can be paid £6.56 per hour. And 21 to 22 is £8.36 per hour. And if you're over 23, this will be £8.91 per hour. If your employers are paying under this wage, refer to the internal grievance procedure first, if they have one. But if this doesn't work, contact the Pay and Rights at Work helpline online or call them up. Alternatively, you could take the issue up with an employment tribunal, which can end in the employer being ordered to compensate you for the pay you've lost. You can also put in a claim at a civil court or magistrates court.
Sick pay. Your level of sick pay depends on your workplace policies. However, there is statutory sick pay, which your employer has to pay by law. You're entitled to £96.35 per week in statutory sick pay if you're too ill to work. It is paid by your employer for 28 weeks. To qualify, you must be classed as an employee, not a worker, and have done some work for your employer. Number 2, earn on average at least £120 per week. Number 3, have been ill for at least 4 days. How to enforce this? If you think your employer hasn't paid you in statutory sick pay you're entitled to, Contact HMRC within 6 months of the date you should have started receiving statutory sick pay. Trial shifts. Employers don't have to pay you for a trial shift if it is not too long, for example, less than 4 hours, and they can prove that it's generally part of the recruitment process. It is common for employers to try and get free labour out of people by making them work full days and calling it a trial shift, and then saying that they don't have to pay them. How can you enforce this? If you believe you're entitled to wages for hours worked during a trial shift but you haven't been paid, please call the Pay and Rights at Work helpline on 0300 123 1100.
Working time. Both employees and workers have the right not to work more than 48 hours a week on average. This is granted to you by the Working Time Regulation Act 2008, so it is in law. You can, however, opt out of this, so you must not be pressured into giving up this right. If you give up this right but then change your mind, you can opt back in by informing your employer, although this could take a few weeks to come back into effect. Night work. Both employees and workers who work night shifts should not work more than 8 hours at night every 24 hours. Workers must be offered a free health assessment before becoming night workers by their employer, and then on a regular basis after that. Rest breaks. Rest breaks are 20 minutes long by employers and workers if the working day is longer than 6 hours. For workers who are under 18, they are entitled to a 30-minute break after working 4.5 hours. Both employees and workers are entitled to 11 uninterrupted hours away from work during every 24-hour period of work. Holiday. Both employees and workers are entitled to a legal minimum of 4 weeks paid leave per year, plus the 8 days of bank holiday. If you are unsure about anything relating to working time, check your contract first to see if it's permitted. If you are working more than 48 hours per week and want to do less, tell your employer. If you are not getting what you are entitled to under your contract, speak to a trade union representative. Employers have a duty to secure the health, safety and welfare of those working for them and protecting anyone within their premises. Employers have a duty to provide you with a safe and healthy working environment. You should receive training about health and safety issues. Also, remember that it isn't just your employer's responsibility to keep you safe at work, it's also yours. If you feel like your employer is forcing you into a situation where there is imminent danger to your health and safety, you can refuse to come to work, citing Section 44 of the Employment Rights Act 1996, which permits you to refuse to come to work if you feel in any danger at work. An example of this would be during the COVID-19 pandemic. Some teachers didn't feel safe going into schools and they were on the brink of using Section 44 before the government imposed a national lockdown. Speak to a trade union official for help with this. For general health and safety disputes, refer the case to ACAS. Another body you can speak to is the Health and Safety Executive. The first thing you should do is speak to the health and safety team if your workplace has one.